Hello and welcome back. I wanted to pick up where I left off. I was talking about oppression and that narcissistic spirit. Well, I wanted to come back and talk about oppression because of the fact that depression is you trying to operate in your own will and your own works to make sure or make something happen. Oppression is when you feel a level of heaviness over you that is seemingly preventing you from moving forward. So, I talked about in previous parts that, for instance, when you have an authority figure, for instance, you're living with somebody. At one point I was living with my godmother and they had an opinion of me, so they took me to a psychiatrist, right? And now I let them talk to the person, and I literally sat there and watched how they manipulated the situation to make it appear like it was something wrong with me. This is the way an oppressive spirit does. It tries to operate in a level of authority to oppress your ability to be able to move forward. Then I sit there and I had the conversation with the same psychiatrist, and the person said it was nothing wrong with me. But took what I said to them back to the person that was believing that they had an authority over me. Now, at this point, I'm 22, 23 years old. So I have the ability to say yes or no to any type of treatment. So after she made that point of revealing her information to the people that brought me there, I was like, oh, I'm never coming back here anymore. Now, the funny thing about it is they had an opinion of me to a degree that they took the information and thereby tried to oppress me to make me appear like I didn't know what I was doing. Funny thing about it, though, God has a way of turning things in your favor. They wanted to put me in a day program, right? Because I spent a lot of my time isolated in my room. But at that particular point in time, if I'm not mistaken, I had just given my life to God. So what ended up happening is they thought that by putting me in this program, it was going to make me come out to be something wrong with me. But what ended up happening is the program that they told me that I needed to go into, I got to talk to the people myself because it was orchestrated like that. And when I talked to them myself, they were like, one, they felt that it was unnecessary for me to be in this program. Two, I can't remember if I was still in college at the time. I don't think I was. But I got an opportunity during that time frame to hear the story of a woman that had been through the ringer. She'd gone through prostitution. She had gone through all of this type of stuff. She gave her life to God, and she had a near-death experience. And in that near-death experience, I don't know whether it was a drug-related overdose or what it was, but she had had a cardiac arrest that they had to put her in ice to make sure that she didn't die. And that story just completely blew my mind. Now, the people that were in this program, they had the ability to have work counselors and all of these types of people. And they were like, oh, yeah, well, you take this program, blah, blah, blah. Well, I got a work counselor, and I also got a therapist. I sat down with a therapist and the word counselor. The therapist sat down and listened to me. Not anything they had to say. Didn't want to hear anything that they had to say. Because the funny thing about it is, any therapist that I talked to before my godmother or anybody else got a chance to speak to these people, they then were not on their side because of the fact that they talked to me. And when they talked to me, they came to the understanding that, oh, it's nothing wrong with her at all. Matter of factly, I had three different therapists sign off. There wasn't a darn thing wrong with me. At first, the first therapist that I went to, initiated by them, tried to tell me that I had manic depressive disorder, and then tried to diagnose me as being bipolar. And when I went to these three therapists, because I only had three because of the fact that one rotated out to the other, and each one of them said, it's nothing wrong with you. Matter of factly, one of them suggested I go to a artistic event after talking to me. They were like, oh, why don't you suggest that I go to this meetup group for artists? And I was like, oh, cool. I went. Guess what? It opened me up to an entirely different view of people and grouping of people at the time. And it brought me out of myself to a degree that they were like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's just that you didn't have the exposure to the things that you were creatively adept to do. But see, an oppressive spirit will try to keep you in isolation and then try to tell you you're crazy. You understand what I'm saying? And then the very same PRP worker that they set me up with, now they wanted the PRP worker to find me work, but the PRP worker, come to find out, when she tried to find me work, doing what they suggested, no work came. But when I started doing things, she was like, well, this isn't working to try to get you a regular job. Well, let's see if we can get you into creative arts. So we started working on arts and artistic stuff, and I was getting momentum. I started blogging. I started doing all of this type of stuff. To this day, I still blog to a degree. It's not what I was blogging then, but it opened me up to other things. And the fact of the matter is, their intention ended up blowing up in their face, because what they wanted was to show a level of authority over me. Oppression will try to create a level of authority that blocks you off from being able to reach your goal. But when God is involved, one, he'll use the foolish things to confound the wise. Two, he will allow them to dig a pit for you, but it will be divinely reversed in your favor. Dig a pit for your brother, you fall in it yourself. Because see, what was happening is it was about control. I remember at one point at the time that just before I left school, school was a very peaceful place for me. And what was happening is they were trying to find out information about what I was doing in school. At the time, I was 20 some odd years old. Nothing I was doing in school was none of their business anyway, as long as I was going and getting my grades taken care of. Well, they were like, oh, well, why don't you go see this particular counselor, which happened to be a family friend of theirs. And when I went to see that counselor, they would know things before I walked in the door that happened to me that day, if I'd been past that counselor. They knew what I did, where I did it, and I was like, now school no longer felt safe for me. Because that's what an oppressive spirit does. It tries to control your actions, attitudes, and ability to move, because it wants to keep you where you are and prevent you from being able to move forward. So when it comes down to a level of oppression, it prevents you from gaining access to what's necessary and blocks your ability to grow, is what a level of oppression does. Because if it can keep you where it feels comfortable, then you can't grow past that. My coach said something about this in a video she did about a week and a half ago, where she was talking about when you're dealing with an oppressive spirit of demonic delay, which is something that the enemy will do. He will prevent you from getting messages that you're supposed to get in the time frame that will break you through. That's why I also believe, it's like, I do believe that the Lord allowed me to go through a few days of not having my phone and all of this kind of stuff. But I do think that there's a level of oppression trying to keep me from having access externally. Because I'm noticing, when I tell you there's a level of warfare that I'm in right now, it's like consistent. From above me to across the hall from where I'm staying at right now, to the way my father comes in the house, to the things that he's listening to 24/7, to the news, it is constant. The only time that I have freedom is when he's not here. And it's quiet like this. It's a level of oppression. And I believe that the Lord's going to make a way that this oppressiveness is moved and maneuvered out of the way. It's funny because I cannot check my emails right now, but I can see them. And on the other phone that I have, I saw a message pop up from the prophetess I listened to, and she was talking about all of the blockades are being removed this month. So it only makes sense that a bunch of blockages and oppression would come up at the beginning of the month, because once the blockage is removed, it's gone. Because the one thing that the enemy always does is, just before a breakthrough, he comes to bring about a state of confusion as a last-ditch effort. That same prophetess calls it alligator roll, where he leads you into a level of confusion that will prevent you from being able to really see the manifestation of what it was, because he's hoping that if he keeps you in constant madness, warfare, here, there, up, down, mental warfare, people coming at you left, right, and sideways, something going on across the hall, above your head, this, that, and the other, and you just in constant turmoil, then he had you in a level of disarray. Because remember, even when Job went through his Job season, everything came at him all at once. His children died, this happened, all of it happened at the same time, in order to bring about a state of confusion. But even in the midst of all that distraction and delay and derailment and all that confusion, God's still in the midst. Because God has a tendency to make a way out of no way. Where it appears that, where it appears like you can't get out of a situation, the enemy will bring in past experiences. I've been dealing with a spirit of not just melancholy, but pulling me back to very detrimental points in time in my life, and trying to get me to dwell on those things, in order to bring up anxiety, fear, frustration. I told you I was praying against fear and anxiety. So anytime you pray against fear and anxiety, your biggest fears and biggest anxieties are going to start to play in your mind. They're going to be repeated. They're going to show up. They're going to, whatever it is that the enemy can use, it's going to be like a battering ram that's going to come at you just because you prayed against it. Same thing if you pray for patience, guess what? Everything's going to happen, that everything's delayed. It's just how things work. So, and I know that I'm going through a level of deliverance, because whenever you're going through a level of deliverance from certain things, you find that you will go through something in your body that will purge something that's in your body of its toxins. So currently right now I'm purging some toxins, and I can tell. And that can happen in multiple different ways, whether you're juicing, whether you're going through any physical blockages in your body, your bowels, your systems, any type of stuff like that, and that begins to purge out fluid, drinking a bunch of water and just flushing your system out. Anything that you're doing, that it can deliver you from a lot of that stuff, especially if you're doing so while you're praying and doing all of this type of stuff. It will purge those things out of you, and you know that it's purging it out because all hell's breaking loose around you while these things are happening. So when that happens, that's just the Lord bringing it up to the surface. I remember I was listening to Tiffany Montgomery, and she says this every time she does consecrations. She was talking about that anytime you are doing a consecration and things are being brought up to the surface, you're going to have breakouts. You're going to have things happening in your body that's going to flush those toxins, flush those things out, whether it's flush it to the surface of your skin or whatever it is. But you have to allow those things to happen, because if you don't, you're going to keep fighting the same thing. This particular toxin thing that I'm dealing with right now, I've been avoiding dealing with it for several months on end. I knew it was there, but I've been avoiding dealing with it the way that I'm dealing with it right now, because I didn't want to have to go through the process of the pain. And that's what happens to a lot of us. We don't want to deal with the pain of the frustration of dealing with it in order for it to be complete. But things have to come to a head for it to be eradicated. And then once it does come to a head, then you can flush the toxin completely, if you allow it to run its course. Yeah, it's uncomfortable, but as I've been hearing a lot of people say, as of lately, that it may be that you're going through a level of discomfort, but discomfort is only a sign, whether it be that you're going through frustration, whether it be your scenario is getting uncomfortable. It's a sign that you are elevating to where you're supposed to be, because these things only come out through you allowing the process to run its course. A lot of people hate going through the painful part or the discomforting part. A lot of us like the peaceful part of the process, where we don't have to deal with the confusion and the loud noises and the disruption and the spirit of doubt and confusion and fear and anxiety and all of this type of stuff, and how it's passing through your system the way that it decides it wants to pass through your system. Most people don't want to deal with it. Most people would rather just remain ignorantly. But the way God works is He's never going to allow you to ignore it. He's going to bring it to the surface, and you're going to have to see where your issue is. He's going to show you this is where your problem is lying. This is where your issue is. This is the issue that you're dealing with. Are you going to continue to allow it to be a problem? Or are you going to let it be resolved? Because I'm noticing a lot of situations where I'm sensing a level of almost deja vu, almost identical situations to similar scenarios that are reminding me of things from my past that were uncomfortable situations as well. Like I said, it's a level of melancholy, a level of, it's trying to draw you backwards, and you can't allow yourself to focus on those things. So it's that element is you have to go through it. I remember Megan Michelle did a video where she was talking about this, and a lot of people have been saying this. The only way out is through the discomfort. Because a lot of people, we want the easy route. That's why a lot of people will choose the wide, clear path because they want ease. No one chooses the dark, dank, full of hedges, full of debris, full of thorny spikes that you have to use a machete to cut down, overgrown area that you can't see your way through, that looks dark and dank and nasty. Nobody chooses that way to go. God does. God always chooses that way, because he takes you through the long dark path so that when you get to where you're going, see, a lot of people want the easy path because it's a straight shot to where they're trying to go. But see, when you take the other path, which is the dark, dank, confusing wilderness, can't see your way out, seems like it's taking forever, don't know whether you're going to get what you're looking for, it seems like you can't, there's no way to get to where you're trying to go. You looking for and waiting for it to get easier. And then confusion. So how do you maintain during that? It's the Lord's way of showing you level by level, process by process. When it's like when you play a video game, I've said this before, when you play a video game, you don't go through level 1 and then end up on level 15. You go through level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, up to 15. And if you can manage to get through that smoothly, some video games have the choice to go easy, which was the first way you played it, medium, and then hard level. And I've been playing a Holy Bible game. It's Holy Escape on my phone, because that's all I have access to right now. That one, and it's another Bible game I play on my phone that is like a wordscape for biblical words. And I'm just doing that, and I'm noticing that I'm getting through it. Even the super hard levels, I'm getting through those. So it's the level, you got to go through the levels, and you got to go through the training in order to get to the other side. A lot of people want the easy route where you don't have to take step 1 through 38. They rather just, can I walk from here to the finish line? But it's the same thing that I was saying when I was talking about playing chess, and the fact that if the queen steps away from her king in pursuit
of getting to the other side and getting the things that she's desiring to get to, she's leaving the king open. But I had a revelation to that the other day as I was still playing the game, that the queen will also, because of her open heart, that she may see somebody that is part of her court being hurt, harmed, or potentially getting kidnapped by the evil oppressor other side of the game. And she, in defense of desiring not to see that person get hurt, may step out of position because of the fact that she wants to protect them. Because I'm noticing that's what I've been doing lately in the game, is that I've been operating in a protective move, meaning every time I saw one of my pieces potentially being prepared to be taken out, I would move to try to block them from being taken out, and still either I'd get taken or the piece would still get taken irregardless. So sometimes our heart will lure us, which is another thing that you have to be aware of. It may cause you to be lured astray because the enemy knows your heart. And if it can, perfect example, we've talked about all of the Disney princesses. What did they do? They allowed, whether it was the queen dressed up as an old hag to lure them away from their safe location, or to get lured up to the attic for Sleeping Beauty to get stuck by the pinwheel. But it's their curiosity and their naivety of the situation that they might desire, because they're such a protective type person, they don't want to see anybody else get hurt, end up stepping into their own trap. So this is something else that you have to think about when it comes down to playing chess. Your biggest and safest position, especially when you're playing chess, is by the king. When you are going through a level of warfare, which king am I talking about? God. You got to stay by your king, because God is going to protect you during your level of warfare. You've got to receive direction from him, wisdom from him, because he's trying to get you through the navigation of the season and the warfare in which you're going through. And it's not easy. But you got to take the wisdom and the advice that he gives, because he's going to be the one that's going to give you the clearance to get you out of the situation that you're in. No matter how hard it is. It's like, I don't even know if I know if I want to put that on this video or not. I was praying in relation to something, in relation to my God ordained spouse, and it was still in alignment with the oppression and fear and anxiety factor, because God showed me something in the past 2 days which was almost identical, and I was like, oh, and I needed to pray about. And I went into prayer, and it was funny that I was literally praying about it, because I was seeking God for revelation in relation to the thing, because I knew that part of this warfare that I was dealing had sprung up was due to the fact I was praying about this thing, and I was gaining this revelation. And it was funny that I literally looked at the screen of the television, in the very episode that was giving me revelation that was on television, on the marquee for the movie, it literally said, pray for me. And I was like, what? I flipped out because I watched that episode at least 30 times in the past 20 some odd years. I've watched that episode. I had it on DVD. I watched it on television. I watched it when it first aired. I watched it. I've watched that episode. And I never saw nor noticed that the marquee said, "Pray for me." I was like, okay. So the Lord will have and give you what you need in the time in which you need it. And I was praying about what was needed for my God ordained spouse in that moment. And that's what came up on television. Pray for me. I was like, I'm already doing that. So I'm gonna stay in the pocket for that. So just know that when you're dealing with oppression, the best thing that you can do is stay in prayer, and things are going to come together. God's going to give you the wisdom as to what you need to do. You're going to deal with the warfare, but God's going to also show you what you need to do in order to break it at a particular point in time, because some things are a battle that you have to fight. Some things is the enemy trying to resist your progress, and you may need to call in some reinforcements. So I hope this helped you. So by the time you see this, it's me after my sabbatical. Until next time, bye bye.